Hey everyone, I know I haven't been on for a while, so it's nice to see you. Um, this week has been pretty scary and pretty stressful as I really struggled with some unexpected breathing issues and chest pain issues, and ended up having to go to the ER over the weekend and still am quite breathless. But thank the Lord, I didn't have an emergency. So, for those who don't know, I have what is known as Marfan syndrome, which is a rare connective tissue disorder. And so, from that, I had a enlarged aorta, um, and needed to have emergency heart surgery for that. In fact, I just celebrated a couple days ago right before I got very sick, I celebrated my my heart surgery anniversary. Bear with me as I'm a little bit out of breath, but just wanted to come on because I haven't been on in so long. And so going back to my heart issue. So I have Marfan syndrome, which I said is a rare connective tissue disorder. It affects about 1 in 5,000 people. No one else in my family had it, but my son does have it. So mine came through a mutation, and then my son got that from me. He inherited the gene for that, and we've done genetic testing to confirm the gene. A lot of people have been speaking about Ehlers-Danlos, which is referred to as almost like a cousin of Marfan syndrome, but no, I do not have that. But I do have Marfan syndrome. So, I did have emergency heart surgery to replace my aortic root, and most of my ascending aorta as well, and I had that done in Stanford, and when the surgeon performed my surgery, he later advised us that my aorta was actually not only ballooned out, that's what an aneurysm is it bulges out and balloons out, and it's at risk of aortic rupture and dissection, which is in often many cases fatal for people. But when he went in, mine was starting to grow very progressively at the time right before my surgery, and it became very dangerous. And so they went in to do the surgery, and my aorta was paper thin, he said. And so it was very close to rupturing, and I thank God that he saved my life. So fast forward, well, let me go back. So when I had my aortic root and ascending aorta repaired done at Stanford with the best surgeons, during my surgery, a different part of my aorta on my descending aorta actually tore. So I developed a dissection during my surgery to repair my aneurysm. And I have had to follow that dissection first every 6 months for like the first year and a half. And then after that, it turned to once a year. Well, it's been stable, but I've struggled intermittently with bad episodes of chest pain. And in the past, I had some issues with breathlessness. So I kind of woke up on Thursday and I was feeling like I couldn't get enough air, and I literally would walk 2 or 3 steps and literally feel like I was going to have to hold on to something or like fold myself over because I could not breathe. And I was like, I've had episodes of asthmatic bronchitis in the past that I've treated with prednisone and inhalers, and that really all started during COVID-19 times, and I have never had it before COVID-19, and I've had it maybe once or twice a year since then. But this time felt pretty extreme, and truthfully, I shouldn't have waited till to go in as long as I did. But I took prednisone, and I continued to have breathing difficulty, and at the same time, my blood pressure started getting really high. Now, the doctors in Stanford want my blood pressure, because of my active dissection, to stay under 120 for the top number, which, so basically 120 over 80. And that has been difficult for me to control. I'm on a lot of heart medications, and it's already difficult for me to control. Well, my blood pressure over the last few days has been staying like in the upper 140s. And then on Saturday, it jumped up to the 150s, and then high up to 165. And I said, I got to go to the hospital, because what if, God forbid, I'm having a dissection. Like, I was having chest pain, but it wasn't crippling. And with dissections, a lot of people describe them as this tearing sensation that just, feels like you're being like unzipped and all unzipped. And just the most horrific pain that you can experience. Now, I was mostly having trouble breathing, and I was like, well, shoot, I hope I don't have like a blood clot or something like that. I was really afraid because my husband's friend passed away from a blood clot. And anyways, so I did finally go in on Saturday evening, and by the time I got there, I couldn't walk because I was so breathless. I could barely speak. My blood pressure was in the high 160s over 97. And I'm telling them, hey, look, I have serious life-threatening heart issues. I could be having a dissection. Like, I need you guys to please prioritize getting me a CT scan. An X-ray doesn't show a dissection. And, every moment counts if you're having a dissection, because every hour, like, your chance of survival goes down by like another 20% or something like that. Like, it's very serious. And, I'm telling them all about my surgical history, and my husband's trying to advocate for me. And it is, what, 3.5, 4 hours pass before I even get a chest X-ray. And it is, I'm thinking to myself, like, what, like, this is, and they have signs, oh, patients will be seen by the severity. And I'm like, this is kind of insane. Like, I felt like a critical heart issue, and, it wasn't treated that way. So it had been um, like almost 5 hours, and the nurse told me, even though I was already in a room and I had been, being monitored for my blood pressure, and I got blood work done and a chest X-ray by that point, and I was in a room, she told me that a doctor hadn't even been assigned to me, and that their physician assistants couldn't evaluate me, just given the nature of my complaint of why I was there for my heart issues. And that just made no sense to me. But then, sadly, while I was being informed that I didn't have a doctor, the emergency room just kind of went crazy, because somebody had been shot and was brought in by their family or friends, and was in a very dire and critical state there. And it was really sad, because you're laying in there, and it was late at night. Well, not too late by that point. It would have been probably around 11 or so. But I could hear them, and I could see everyone running, and I could hear them kind of wheel the person by very quickly, and it was chaos. And they asked for the paddles, and I knew at that point that his heart probably would have stopped. And my nurse ran and went to go join to help, and I didn't end up seeing her. They gave me a different nurse, but I ended up seeing her 5 or 6 hours later. And I asked her, I knew that they weren't going to be able to tell me if the person was okay or not. But I could see on her face that she just looked really sad and troubled. And I said, I'm so sorry you've had a sad night. And I said, they didn't make it on? And she just, you could just read her face that they didn't survive. And, it was, such a sad thing. Someone is literally, whatever, less than 100 feet away from you, taking their final breaths. And, their family or friends are there. And it's just, it's really sad that, it was just sad. It was sad to see, someone lose their life. And I tried to look it up to see if it was like a murder, and I didn't see any information on any sites, which kind of led me to believe that maybe it was self-harm. But of course I don't know. I just, I just, I just felt really bad for them and their family having to experience that. That was really sad. So then finally, around 1 a.m. or so, I was able to get a CT scan. We got there around 7, so several hours later. And luckily I was not having a dissection. I wasn't having a heart attack. There was no blood clot. And so, I'm kind of back at square one to see. I will be seeing my specialist, my heart specialist, in August at Stanford again. And I just ask y'all would pray for me so that, I can get answers as to what's going on. I don't know if I'm in another asthmatic bronchitis flare for sure, or if there is now something else wrong with my heart in addition to what I already knew about. So if y'all would just keep me in your prayers, I would really appreciate it. My kitty right here, Butter. Butter. Isn't she beautiful? She had to go to the vet today because she's walking with a limp on her back leg. And they did an x-ray. It's her back left leg that's been hurting her. She's been limping on it for the last week and a half. And so finally we're like, we need to get her in. And so we're hoping that she doesn't have anything broken. But they were saying, the vet was saying today that it's difficult to tell sometimes because the bones are really small on a cat. But we got some gabapentin, some pain medicine for her. And we'll know in the next couple hours. She's such a nice cat, tortoiseshell, feisty. And we've had her for, I want to say, about 9 years. And yeah, she's she's the best. So I just wanted to address briefly the future of my channel. As you know, if you follow my channel for any length of time, I spent a considerable amount of time going over the Kyle Appleford, Jenny Appleford story, and made several videos about that, and went through things that people were interested in, that I was interested in, and felt at the time that I was doing a good job in terms of bringing light to how I felt and many people felt that Jenny's page was being misused by her husband Kyle after she passed away. But there came a time where I felt like I had did enough, where I felt like I covered the story, with respect and with a lot of research, and with heart and empathy for Jenny and her supporters, and I just didn't feel like it was meant for me to cover the story anymore. At some point it started to feel like I've done enough, and as a Christian, I want to be very careful that, I don't get into a place where I'm speaking about people in a way that I don't feel comfortable speaking about them anymore in that way. And so now I'm just here on my channel and I'm just talking, so I might just upload random videos about, my life and the roads I've taken and the way God has been there for me and my family and things that are important to me and interesting to me. And, I welcome you to join me, on my page still if that's interesting to you. And if it's not, and this is no longer, a place where you're interested, that's okay too. It's certainly okay. You're at liberty to watch what you'd like to, and you don't certainly have to stay if you're not interested. I'm perfectly fine with that. Um, but so I just wanted to address briefly the future of my channel. As you know, if you follow my channel for any length of time, I spent a considerable amount of time going over the Kyle Appleford, Jenny Appleford story, and made several videos about that, and went through things that people were interested in, that I was interested in, and felt at the time that I was doing a good job in terms of bringing light to how I felt and many people felt that Jenny's page was being misused by her husband Kyle after she passed away. But there came a time where I felt like I had did enough. Where I felt like I covered the story, with respect and with a lot of research, and with heart and empathy for Jenny and her supporters, and I just didn't feel like it was meant for me to cover the story anymore. At some point it started to feel like I've done enough, and as a Christian, I want to be very careful that, I don't get into a place where I'm speaking about people in a way that I don't feel comfortable speaking about them anymore in that way. And so now I'm just here on my channel and I'm just talking, so I might just upload random videos about, my life and the roads I've taken and the way God has been there for me and my family and things that are important to me and interesting to me. And, I welcome you to join me, on my page still if that's interesting to you. And if it's not, and this is no longer, a place where you're interested, that's okay too. It's certainly okay. You're at liberty to watch what you'd like to, and you don't certainly have to stay if you're not interested. I'm perfectly fine with that. Um, but I really do want this space to be an authentic space. I think with the emergence and reliance on AI, there is so much that's just not very honest these days. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with AI. I've used AI in my videos for images and different parts for storytelling, and I really don't mean that, but sometimes it's nice to have someone just to come on and be real and talk about real life and real hardships and real joys, and there's a lot of things that I kind of would like to share: interesting stories, crazy stories, sad stories. I have a kind of a lot that's happened in my life. I've helped track down a serial killer in my own city with the community. I've, survived child abuse and domestic violence and emergency heart surgery and miscarriage. And I've, had the blessing of taking my very sick son on a Make-A-Wish trip and taken care of him as a single parent, and went to college and worked for a nonprofit helping the community. And my family's been through a lot, and I've seen God moving in tremendous ways in our life. And and so I might just get on and talk about different stories, but I just want this to be a place where I can just come on and share. And if you want to watch, I'm happy to have you here. So that's, I think that's going to be about it for today. But I hope everyone has had a enjoyable start to your week and everyone had a nice weekend. And I hope everyone is doing well. Let me know in the comments how you are. And I hope that everyone has a beautiful and safe and happy and healthy week. And I am going to be working on trying to get my lungs in better shape. And yeah, so thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching my video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great week and God bless y'all. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus when Jesus washed my sins away, washed my sins away.